Hello everybody. Today and this video will be the last session we'll record where we look at Dreamweaver, and we're going to be working today with chapter 8 from the Dreamweaver book and working with images, and then we're going to move on and we're going to work with chapter 9 and we're going to be working with navigation. Since we worked with the design view the last time, today let's work with the live view a bit. Today we're going to be working with the data files from chapter 8 and chapter 9, and I've gone ahead and set up the site. So let's go over here and we'll look, and we're working in first lesson 8, and that means that we have access to the files from chapter 8, and those things are available for us to use. In particular, the images. This is the files panel. Another panel we're going to use today is going to be assets panel, and we can more easily see information about the files that are actually as assets for our site, such as these images. It tells us the size of the image, it tells us how big the file is, and it tells us the name of the file. So there's some information about what we're working with, and we can easily pick out the images we want to use. Okay, before we get started with the images, let's do a quick recap of working with CSS. We can tell after we open up the HTML page, contact-us, and we found that up under our files, and we're going to work with it. And this contact-us HTML, and we've got it open. We can tell that the attached style sheet is mygreen-styles.css. So let's open that in a separate file, because we need to look at and see the syntax used with styles and setting up a rule. So one of the styles we're actually going to work with a class that's been defined within the style sheet, and that's going to be .flt-rgt. That's the name of the rule for that style, and in there it has been defined that the image would float to the right, and that the margin will be on the left is going to be 10 pixels. So that's the information about that particular rule, and we're going to assign that to some images. Okay, let's go back to our HTML page, and we're going to move design. We're going to actually collapse the CSS designer. Okay, so in the directions from the book, and we're going to just quickly go through those, we need to select the first paragraph under Association Management, and then we need to go to Assets, and we need to find the image Elaine, and here it is, and it tells us then that it's 150 by 150 pixels. So that tells us how big it's going to be, and we're going to take and assign that. We're going to actually insert that particular image in. So we want to go and choose the Insert inside of the Assets panel. So we're going to choose Insert here. And in this case, we want it to nest. We want it to fall within that paragraph, so we're going to choose Nest. Okay, so I'm going to actually turn off the split and just use the live view. Okay, so we can now see that this image of Elaine is in there, and I mean, you might be satisfied with that, but I think it could fit better on the page. So we're going to add some CSS styles, and remember the styles we had mentioned before. Okay, we're going to assign that, and it's actually a class, and we're going to that is going to be called the .flt-rgt, and we're going to press enter, and notice how it is actually moved it to the right, and it's going to be nested within that particular paragraph. As we work with images, we also want to make sure we add descriptions for the images to make them more accessible. Okay, with that, you're going to come over here and use the HTML attribute and select it, and I've entered in the alternate information as a description. Next, we're going to add in some of the other images on this Contact Us page. And with that, I want some of these images to be located on the left and some on the right. So that means I'm going to have to come over here to my style sheet and make a change. The easiest way for me to make a change is just to get started by copying what we already have in here as a rule, and I'm going to take and just rename this. So instead of right, I'm going to change this to a little shortcut for left, and we'll use that as and then I'm going to change this float left. Okay, let's take one last look at our CSS code, and we have set up information to allow the image to float to the right, and with that it's going to have a margin which will be a blank space to the left, which will push the text back. So this is how we will style that image. And then float to the left would add a margin to the right, which would push text back, and that'll space the image out so that you can better see the image. Okay, now let's actually put some images in the page. We already have 2 images loaded on the page. The first one is set up to float to the right, and the second one is set up to float to the left. Let's scroll down, and we want to select this paragraph, and this is for Eric. So we're going to come over to the Assets panel and find Eric, and then we're going to come down and choose the Insert button. And remember, we're going to use Nest. The next thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and add that class. In this case, we want it to float to the right. We're going to now insert an image in the news web page, and it's going to be up under Shopping Green Saves Energy. So we're going to select that paragraph, and we're going to come over and find Farmers Market under the Assets, and then we're going to choose Insert, and we're going to nest it. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want to find the rule in our CSS file that's float right, and so we find it on our list of options there for rules. But this image still looks a little out of place, so we're going to actually make a change to the image by working in our Properties panel. And you want to make sure that the size constraints is locked, so that if you change the width size, that it will keep its proportions with the height. So we're going to actually reduce the size of this down to 350 pixels, which will automatically reduce the height. So this looks a little better on the page. One of the easiest ways to create a link within your page is to use the Properties panel. So we've down the bottom, we've selected some text, and we're going to create a hyperlink for that text. This is going to be for an external site, so we're going to use the global address, and we're going to come down to link and add in that address. This is the full address. Okay, and you can just type it right in. Okay, we're going to look at a couple of other techniques that you can use to link to other files. In this case, we're going to link to a HTML file that's actually within our site, and we're going to select some text. In this case, we're going to select the text news, and we're going to come down to the Properties panel again and find link. And this time we're not going to just type in that address. We can use the option to browse for the file and choose news, but we're going to hit cancel now. And I want to show you another technique that can be used by just pointing to the file using this icon. We're going to drag that up and find the file news and select it. And you notice that it creates a relative connection to that or link to that file, and thereby creating a link for that page. Okay, I'm going to briefly talk about how to create navigation on a page with some of the options you have available in Dreamweaver. One of those, and I've got that set up at the top, is to use insert either from the menu or the insert panel, and to come down and find the navigation option. And when you do that, it will create this section in HTML, and then basically you manually set up let me go to code view so you can see what I'm doing with this. So then you come and basically create a list of items that will have some hyperlinks associated with them, and this is an unordered list. So in that you're going to have a list of things such as home, about us, and a list of the pages. So let's go back to live view. And with that, then you can come back up here and set up the appropriate links. And that works pretty much like we just did with creating the link either by navigating to it, keying in the hyperlink link information or URL, or either dragging the point to file option. The other option to use is just to manually create it. You type in some text, and then again you just select that particular option, and again come down and link to the particular file that you want to use, or type in the global URL. You can also use images. You can select an image and again create a link, and I'm down here. You can again, same options, dragging to the link or finding that particular file. The other option you have is to use the available buttons that come with the jQuery option or JavaScript option that comes with Dreamweaver, and that will be found also again under Insert, or from the Insert tab over here. You want to make sure you've changed it to jQuery to find the particular buttons you need, but you want to choose button set in this case. Now let me just add another button set in here. Okay, so I'm going to grab button set, drag it down, and it creates this button set, and then you make changes within the button set. Again, you're going to want to create some options for creating your links to the particular pages and naming them. Okay, that's just some options you can use with Dreamweaver to create navigation. Thank you.